354. Hymn 354. We're going to sing the first and last verse. Hymn 354. I gave my life for thee, my precious blood I shed, that thou might ransom thee and quicken from the dead. I gave my life for thee. What hast thou given me? And I gave my life for thee. What hast thou given for me? And I have brought to thee down from my home above salvation full and free, my pardon and my love. I bring rich gifts to thee. What hast thou brought to me? I bring rich gifts to thee. What hast thou brought for me?
Okay, I hope everybody's having a good week. Sam's going to be teaching our class. Appreciate him preaching and being willing to teach us also. He always does a great job besides leading singing. I appreciate everyone, his willingness to be able to help us out with that. Brandon should be coming home, I think he's Friday, I think is what her husband said. Ed Furr. Anyway, my neighbors are pretty good people. And she passed away this a couple days ago. ICU late last night to a step down. He has limited communication and paralysis on the left side. He's not able to swallow and can't move his left arm or leg. So continue to remember Bill and Bob's brother. Let's see. Laura's sister, some of y'all know Lisa. Anyway, she had her first round of chemo. It kind of made her sick, but she's doing okay with that. She's in good spirits, so she's doing good. I don't know if y'all know Rick Phillips, but he lives down here. He married one of the Wilson daughters, but he's not doing too well. He's had some problems, and he's in rehab in the Somerville nursing home. So, but he's doing okay. He's doing better. So, just pray for the Phillips family. Let's see who else. Claudia said Luca, her great grandson, is doing pretty good. He's doing good, but continue to remember him in your prayers also. Is there anyone else? Annette had her hand.
My sister and her husband lost his mother last night. Her name is Bee Atkinson.
Who did you say? I missed it.
My sister.
Oh,
My sister's husband, her mother-in-law.
Okay.
I guess I could have made that a little easier.
Yeah, hard to understand. So no, okay, I got it. So B. Atkinson. Is anybody else? Anything else going on? Don't forget, Sunday we got a lot of things going on. After church, the elders are meeting with the men of the congregation. congregation for a few minutes. And then again, Sunday night, we're going to go to the back building and stuff envelopes and for announcements for our gospel meeting that's coming up on September the 22nd through the 26th. So continue to pray for that and remember that. And then also Sunday we have the nursing home. So just continue to remember all those things and pray for those. Anything else going on? If not, well, do you have something?
Yeah, well, prayer for that. I was gonna
We already
say,
did that.
pray for Jacob, Keith's brother. That they're planning on. He's moving up to Indiana where his girlfriend lives,
Okay.
and their 3 kids. So pray for him.
All right. Do that. He's for sure he's going.
He went Monday for job interviews
Okay.
and just accepted a job. He's already told his job, so I hope he's really doing it.
Okay. He quit his job, so pray
Yeah.
for Jacob and his moving. Okay. All right. We'll begin our service with prayer. If I can figure out how to turn my phone. Let's go to our Father in prayer. Dear Father, we thank you for everything. We thank you for this cooler weather that we have, and we thank you for everything that you've given us. We thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We pray everything we do will be to your glory. We pray for those we mentioned here tonight. Be with the Fur family and their loss, dear Father, and continue to be with Bob's brother Billy and his problems, dear Father. Just bless them. Continue to look over Luca and their family, dear Father, and pray that everything goes well with him. Be with Lisa and her chemo and her cancer, dear Father. We pray that everything will work out for her, dear Father, and help her to have a good attitude about things. And continue to be with Rick Phillips and his family and everything that they're going through, dear Father. Just bless them during that time. And be with the Atkins family. We pray for them, dear Father. Be with Jacob and his upcoming move. We pray that everything will go well with him, and may you look down on him and his moving, and may everything go well with what he's doing, dear Father. We thank you for everything. We pray that we will always serve you and look to you, and forgive us of our many sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. Talked a little bit about parables Sunday, and I was going to do the parables in the Old Testament, that God gave, and I got about half into that, and I decided that it was too difficult. So I want us to go to Matthew, the first chapter, and see what kind of special information we're given by the genealogy of Christ. So who will read the first 3 verses? Matthew 1. All right.
The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brothers. Judah begot Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez begot Hezron, and Hezron begot Ram.
Okay. Who wants to say something about that? Kim?
I was gonna volunteer to read.
Oh, not yet. We're going to have 42 generations in this chapter. 14, 14, and 14. 42 of them. And it's important to me, not important to me, but it was obvious to me that there must be something special about the 4 women that he included in these 14. What was the woman in the 1 through 3?
Sarah would be first for Abraham's wife, wouldn't it?
What now?
Wouldn't it be Sarah, be Abraham's wife?
Yeah, but who's mentioned in those 3 verses? All right. who's going to tell me the story of Tamar? Huh? See, we don't know much about these people that he's talking about. Let's go to Genesis 38. It's not a very pleasant story to talk about, and you don't want to teach it in the little classes back in the hall back there. But Judah was one of the 12 sons of Israel, Jacob, and he inherited, when they came back from Egypt, he got the land assigned to Judah, the tribe of Judah. He didn't get all of it, but he was on some of it. It was south of Jerusalem. It included Bethlehem, but it was a very small area compared to Manassas. Manassas went from sea to the river and beyond. But because of the ownership of this land and the Jewish laws on it, they could not just sell it to anybody else. He wanted them to pass it down from generation to generation. And so Judah, let's see where I want to start here. Let me just tell it. Judah had 3 sons, and the oldest son married this woman. He was evil, and God made him die. Okay, so what question did they ask Jesus about something like this? What if a husband died and the guy had 7 brothers, and they passed her down to each of the brothers? Which one of them in heaven which would they be married to? Remember that question? Well, the law was back in Deuteronomy 25 that if the oldest boy married someone and had no children, that the second brother was supposed to take over as her husband and have a child. So why would they do that? Thinking back about inheriting the land as God wanted them to do, why would that be important to God? Say it again?
To keep the land in the family?
Exactly. And so the second boy marries her, and he's disobedient to the marriage vows, and he's struck dead. So you got a younger brother available, but the younger brother is too young to marry. And so Judah tells Tamar, you go back home to your daddy, and you stay unmarried, and you're betrothed to my little boy, and when he grows up, you'll marry him. Sound like a plan? What would you ladies think about that? Messes up your life, doesn't it? And if you think about the time frame, what do women have in their late 20s and 30s? Besides that, the clock is ticking.
Getting a little young there. Maybe say 40.
Well, okay, 40. I wasn't thinking right. All right. So you got this woman, and obviously the boy was preteen, and now he's an adult, and Judah won't let him marry her. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he want him to marry this woman? Age difference. He's already lost 2 boys to her, so I can see his reluctance. So anyway, Tamar heard about all this going on, and she dresses up like a harlot, and they're winnowing the wheat. No, that's Ruth. They're shearing they've gone down to the pastures and they're working down there. And Tamar sets up in a tent looking like she was there all the time. And so Judah is enticed and goes into her, and he says, I'll give you a kid, not a baby, but a lamb, if you'll sleep with me. Do what? And so he doesn't have it with him, so he says, I'll give you my staff and whatever this thing was around his neck that they called it, and as my promise. And so they agree on that and consummate the act. And she goes back to her father's house, and he goes home. And he sends his servants down there with a kid, a little goat, lamb, whatever it is. And there's nobody there. There's no tent there. So he's very confused. But anyway, he goes on with his life. And a couple months later, she comes to him because she is betrothed to his little boy, to his younger son, and says, I am with child. Same as you would see on a lot of TV shows, right? And I didn't expect that. And so what is Judah's response to that? Do what? All right. She has done something evil, and she disavowed my son, so we're going to burn her at the stake. And so what does she do then? Tamar brings out a staff and this rope that was around his neck and said, this is the man who caused me to be pregnant. So Judah identified it as his own, and then he said, well, it must be all right, I guess. And let the girl come and live in his house and bore twins. So what good came out of that events? Say it again? Yeah, he's listed next. But now there was an heir for Judah's land. And so, get back to Matthew, and she saved the family name, more or less. All right, and who wants to read 4 and 5? Kim?
Ram the father of Amminadab, Amminadab the father of Nahshon, Nahshon the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab, Boaz the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth, Obed the father of Jesse.
All right, we got a double whammy there. Got 2 women involved. Who's the first one? First one named in that verse. Rahab. All right, remember Rahab? The Israelites sent spies into the walled city of Jericho, and 2 of the spies were being chased down by some of the people who identified them as not supposed to be there. Their southern border was being invaded, and so Rahab what? She hid them where?
In the roof, the thatch.
All right, very good. During harvest, what they would do is put their sheaves of whatever grain they were growing on the roof to dry out, and they didn't have a warehouse to put them in. And so she had some of these sheaves on her roof, and so she told the guys, go upstairs and hide under those plants, drying up plants. And then what did she do? When they came and asked her about it, what did she say?
She said she hadn't seen them.
Yeah,
She told a lie.
that's right, she did. And so they agreed. Hold on. Joshua 2 is the verse I want to look at. They agreed that if she would hide them till they got through surveying the city and finding all of it, that she could be saved from the tragedy coming to Jericho. But she'd have to do what in the window?
Red scarlet.
Okay. Tie a sash in the window to identify the part of the building that's hers, right? Joshua 2, verse 9. This is a long one, I'll read it. 9 through 13. Before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you, and when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. As soon as he heard these things, our heart melted. Neither did there remain any more courage in anyone because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Therefore I beg you, swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you also show me kindness to my father's house, and give me a true token, and spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. So they made a promise. They made a treaty of sort. And so Tamar was safe. She was saved by her belief that God was a powerful God and that he allied with them. She allied with them. And so they did crash the walls of Jericho. She did hang out the red rope. She was saved and her families. And then Jewish, not historians, but it's written in the Jewish word that she married one of the spies. And so we assume that this is who she was, the wife out there in Matthew. So she was a convert, if you will. All right, and then who's the other woman in that verse? We know her a little bit better, right? Right. They wrote a whole book about her. And Ruth was from what country?
She was a Moabite.
All right. Where did the Moabites come from?
The Moabite cities.
Yeah, Moab. That's cheating. Who knows her lineage? Who knows the Moabite lineage? Came from Lot's kids. One of Lot's daughters was the one that was the progenitor of the Moabites. And then her other was the Hittites. So those two nations came from Lot. But she married an Israelite person, and Naomi was the mother, and they had two boys, and there was a famine in the land. This happened. You can read through the Old Testament, and you see several times that they had a famine in that area. And so when the famine hit, they all picked up and moved across the river to Moab. And there, as life would have it, the dad died, the boys died. So you've got these three women. Oh, the other son married a Moabite woman too. And so you got these three women in Moab that aren't really welcome. They didn't care too much for widows. They didn't have a Social Security program for them or anything. And so the three women get up and start going back to Israel. And what did Naomi tell these girls?
Told them to go back to their own country. She's old and she didn't want to be a burden. Then Ruth said, Naomi has told me not to leave you, nor keep me from following after you. For where you go, I shall go. Your people be my people, my God be my God.
All right. Very good. We give you an A+ on your homework.
The first day.
so you got the two Moabite girls, and one of them has declared allegiance to not only to Naomi, but to the God that she serves. And so what did the other girl say? Huh? Toodles. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna stay here with my people, right? And so Ruth goes back with Naomi, and they're two women alone there, and she starts gleaning the field of a relative named Boaz. And gleaning is what? Huh? Reaping the harvest. The big guys are out there harvesting the field, and they're instructed by the Jewish law to leave the corners as they are, and if they drop anything off their cart, leave it where it falls. And that was for the poor in the neighborhood to come out there and pick their grain or pick up the grain they dropped and have their own supply of food. God has always cared about the poor people. So here you got Ruth, a foreigner, and Boaz, this is where the winnowing comes in. Boaz goes to the harvest to winnow his grain. So that's not minnowing, it's winnowing. So what is he actually doing?
He's storing his grain up.
Huh?
He's storing his grain up, isn't he?
Not yet.
Boaz?
Getting the seed from the.
All right. You got a husk on there, like we talked about the tares and the wheat Sunday, and they would either throw it up in the air or leave it on the threshing floor and beat it with something. And the light husk that's on there is lighter than the seeds, and it would blow off where they're working it. And then they would gather up the good part of the grain and put that up. And so after a hard day's work, Boaz was sleepy. He goes in one of the quiet areas there and goes to sleep for the night. And Miss Ruth was told by Naomi, when he goes to sleep, you go in there and lay down by his feet and ask him if you can cover up with his blanket. And so she did, and Boaz is obligated to protect her at that point. He's agreed for her to sleep under his blanket, and that's almost an oath. And so there was one other cousin that was closer than he was. So they go to him and offer for him to take Ruth as his wife. And he declined. And because of that, that opened the gate for Boaz to be able to marry Ruth. And so in the deal, Boaz had the land that her father-in-law used to own in Israel. And so again, the inheritance of land comes into someone's story, and she and Boaz had the same land that Naomi had when they, plus his other holdings. Okay, so that's a story of redemption and inheritance. Back to Matthew. All right, we're down to 6. Who's got a good pronunciation? Read 6 through 9. Who wants to read that? You didn't read 9, did you?
No, I'm just saying that's why I chose to read early.
Oh.
Didn't want to get down in those names.
Okay.
Which one, what do you want read?
Read 6, 7, 8, and 9
I'll try it.
of Matthew 1.
And David begot David the king. David begat
thank you, very good.
Did I get 'em right?
Sounded good, yeah. I wouldn't try to correct you. All right, so we've got probably the most famous of the four here, Bathsheba. She was the daughter of Eliam in the Old Testament, called something else in Chronicles, and but she was the wife of Uriah the Hittite, and so what happened with Bathsheba? We all can fill in the blanks on this one.
She was going bathing under the roof, and David saw her and wanted her, and then he ended up getting Uriah killed, and on and on.
Okay, it does go on and on. That's what I wanted to get into.
Okay.
All right. Was God pleased with this?
No, Bathsheba's firstborn, he took. The firstborn of Bathsheba passed away.
Yeah. He lived for 7 days. And David grieved over it. He was out in the garden praying about it, asking God not to do this. And God's will was done, and the boy passed away. So how would you feel if you were that woman?
Pretty upset.
Pretty upset? Was it your fault?
You would feel like it would.
Okay. At that time, if the king said come, you just about had to come. You didn't have a choice to say, no, I better not do that. And so she was coerced or forced by his position to go into him. And she comes back and says, I'm with child. And so because of that, David's scrambling for a plan. So Uriah was one of the generals in his army, and he was on the field, a battlefield. He really did he didn't retire. He goes out there and fights with his other men. Political satire there. So he calls him home, calls Uriah to come back to the castle, and you wouldn't usually use a general as a messenger boy. But he proceeds to ask him, how's the battle going? You got all your supplies? And just mediocre questions about the army being at war. And then he says, well, Uriah, why don't you go home and stay with your wife tonight? Covering up his deeds, right? And Uriah refused to go home and be with Bathsheba. And he stayed in an obvious place on the porch. So he had to come up with plan B. I can't blame him for getting his wife pregnant. So how does he figure he's going to do that? Bill? What did he do? You don't remember? Leon?
He made whoever was over Uriah, he sent Uriah to the fierce. He found out where the fierce battle was going to be, and Uriah was sent to the midst of the fierce battle.
Yep.
To make sure there was no uncertain terms that he would lose his life out there where he was going.
Right. And then he told him to withdraw the troops from around him. To leave him and a few men out there by themselves. And he gave that note to Uriah to take back to the general on the field. So think about that. Uriah has been honorable. He's been a good citizen. He's been a warrior. Now he's taken his own death sentence back to the army. And so after he is killed in battle, then she becomes sorrowful. And then after she's had her time of sorrow, then she becomes David's wife. How many other of David's wives were somebody else's wife before? Or, huh?
Probably none.
Yeah. Yeah, more than one. If you you remember back, Saul gave David his first daughter, took her away from him, gave her to somebody else, and then he went and took her back later. And then the guy with the big crops that insulted David, he was going back to kill him. His wife begged and pleaded with him not to.
What was her name? What was that lady's name? She told him, said, my husband's a fool. Why would you even
I didn't
who?
I didn't look it up. Was it Abigail?
Abigail.
Thank you.
Who said that?
Smart one.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so
Abigail.
the husband did die, and he took her as a wife too. So how many kids did? All right, we got the first baby dead, and then she has another baby, right? What's his name? Bathsheba's second child.
Solomon wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, Solomon. That's right. And so this became the next king of Israel, which by birth pattern would not be the law, because he was not near the first child of David. And you got I forgot where it is. They list each of the wives and their children, and Bathsheba had 4 boys besides the one that died. And so he was called Jedediah also, which means the Lord's chosen. I don't know if they gave it to him after he was chosen or before he was chosen. But when they get older and it's time for a king to be appointed, what did Bathsheba do? Good mamas. What do you do when your kid's not being picked?
Persuade.
Do what?
Persuade.
Yeah. Yeah. She persuaded King David that he needed to appoint Solomon to be the next king. And so she was very instrumental in getting him to be the next king of Israel. So what did they have in common, these 4 women? What characteristic or what driving force?
Well, they were controlled by women.
Okay. They were each redeemed of God. They made terrible mistakes, some of them, and God didn't hold them. He didn't destroy them for it, but let them continue their lives. And like Tamar, that was awful what she did to Judah, but she ended up being listed in the list of these relatives of Jesus. And it's also, she's the only one of these mentioned in Hebrews 11. So you got, no, not her. It's Rahab the harlot. Sorry, I'm tired. But you got these 4 women who became instruments of creation, procreation, in the line of King from David down to Jesus. It's just an exercise in pronunciation from 10 to the end of the chapter. So I'll let you take that as you will and read it yourselves. Any questions or comments?
And being Pharisees in Hebrews, being Pharisees, they don't look kindly on this genealogy here when they realize that these people, they're not happy, but God takes the ordinary and does the extraordinary with them.
Yeah.
That's not what Jesus is supposed to be like to the Pharisees. He's supposed to be the cat's meow, which he is.
Yeah.
But from his way he was brought up, they're not happy with him.
All right, good.
Yeah, just during that time, Tamar, just to give her, they were like property, and if you didn't have any kids, you were
Benjamin's mother,
Yeah.
Rebecca? No,
Yeah.
Leah and Rebecca, yeah.
Yeah, and just, and then he got handmaids given to him, they had a fight over who was gonna have the most kids. So
Oh, yeah.
it was a big deal back then. If you
And,
didn't have
and
kids.
Leah and her handmaid won.
Yeah. So if you didn't have kids back then, it was a big deal.
Yep. Hannah and Elkanah. Who's that?
Who's it?
Hannah and Elkanah.
No.
Bill, you know? Samuel's mother. And she was barren and she prayed for a child. All right, you got a song?